Good morning. North Korea rejects a statement against Pyongyang's proposed wage hike signed by 115 companies operating in the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Park. Gunmen in military gear rush a museum in Tunisia's capital, killing at least 19 people, mostly tourists. 2 gunmen are killed and a manhunt is underway for the rest. Deep-rooted culture and history fills the 5th largest island in Korea. Discover its delights on Korea Discovered with Joey Mercadante. The chic outerwear to top off the complete spring look. See what's hot and should be on your back on Korea Today, Thursday, March 19th, 2015.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good morning. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday morning. I'm Oh Jin-ju with Kim Min-jung and Kim Yang. Now, the city of Hampyeong in Jeollanam-do Province will be hosting its annual Butterfly Festival in May. And yesterday, wishing for another successful festival this year, they held a Butterfly Flying Festival at Hampyeong Expo Park, which is the very venue of the festival.
The Butterfly Festival offers visitors the opportunity to get a closer look at its ecology, in particular the region's butterflies, and there's hands-on area where visitors can see and touch a variety of animals and plants. Tickets went on sale yesterday, I believe, through some online ticket sites. And if you actually purchase reserve tickets until the 17th of next month, then 30% off is your discount that you get.
Right. Not a lot of people are a fan of insects, but butterflies are always an exception to that
Are butterflies
rule, right?
insects?
Yes, they
They are, right?
Yeah, they are.
People don't consider them
Confuse me
insects.
like that, but they're so beautiful, and when they're flying in the
Yes,
air,
they are.
of all colors and sizes,
And there will be
they're really
so many
beautiful.
types of butterflies.
Right, so
in
be
the
sure to check it
festival.
out.
Right.
All right.
Work of art there.
Let's now get a check on today's headlines. A group of South Korean businessmen operating in the inter-Korean industrial complex in Kaesong has visited the North to deliver their stance that North Korea's proposed wage hike would hinder their business operations. In a 2-hour discussion with North Korean officials, the 14-member delegation said the 5% wage hike that the North had unilaterally notified the South of last month would make international companies and buyers lose faith in the joint industrial park and also discourage new investors from seeking business opportunities in the North. North Korean officials, in the meantime, rejected a statement signed by 115 of the 124 companies operating in Kaesong, saying wage regulations are up to them and does not involve mutual consultations. A Unification Ministry spokesman in Seoul said on Wednesday that the government is doing what it can to protect the companies operating in the North, but added that a shutdown of the joint complex is not in their considerations.
Undecided at this point is what the presidential office of Cheong-wha had to say about Korea's participation in the China-led Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank on Wednesday. Senior Secretary for Economic Affairs An Jong-bum rejected a media report that Seoul had informed Washington on joining China's initiative to create a new Asian development bank. An stressed that the government has not held any official discussions or made its position public, adding that they're still in the stages of reviewing the proposal. Meanwhile, beginning with England, European allies of the United States, including France, Germany, and Italy, have confirmed their intent to become prospective founding members of Beijing's flagship economic outreach project. Washington has lobbied against the AIIB as it is seen as a challenge to the U.S.-led global financial order. Korea has until the end of this month to make a final decision.
And that topic on Korea's possible joining of AIIB will likely take center stage among other thorny issues when the foreign ministers of South Korea, China, and Japan meet later this week for the first time in 3 years. Seoul's foreign ministry says that South Korea's top diplomat Yoon Byung-se will chair the trilateral meeting in Seoul on Saturday with his Chinese and Japanese counterparts to discuss regional and global issues, including the deployment of the THAAD missile battery that's becoming a source of tension among Seoul, Beijing, and Washington. The 3 countries have historical and territorial disputes to overcome. Seoul with Tokyo over the enslavement of women during World War II and over the Korea-controlled Dokdo Islets located between Korea and Japan. The U.S. welcomed the meeting on Tuesday, saying it supports dialogue among the 3 nations.
Good morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers. Now, today we'll start out with a look at the real estate market here in Korea that seems to be on an upturn. This is the top headline on Donghwa-ilbo. And take a look at this one on the left. It says, rosy outlook for the housing market. Resurgence of related industries ensues. And let's take a look at these sub-headlines here. Lately, there's been a boom in real estate transactions in general, as well as the distribution of many newly built apartments, bringing an atmosphere of warmth in the home interior design, furniture, and real estate brokerage markets. In fact, some 50,000 homes are moving into new apartments up until May, with housing deals having been increased drastically since these holidays. The paper says the housing market has thus been getting back on track and recovering, citing data by the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport. Now, although we have been seeing a rosy housing market, the job market has been going down. It says here, youth with no jobs and delinquent accounts, labor management and government lose their grip. If we take a look at the article in detail, the country's youth unemployment rate has climbed to 11.1% last month, which is the highest in 15 years since July of 1999. Statistics Korea said the jobless rate has increased on year amid local companies' downsizing of recruitment scales and the overall economic slowdown. On top of that, there are some 40,000 young adults who have not been able to pay up their student loans even. And the paper adds that companies have further decreased their size of hiring due to the extension of the retirement age. Meanwhile, the labor union has solely been engrossed in protecting and enlarging the status of regular employees, while observers keep stressing that the government must come up with a way to radically push for a labor reform. And switching gears now to the THAAD issue that's been a hot topic lately here on Joseon-ilbo. Let's take a look at this. It says Korea-US may hold high-level talks on THAAD next month, and it looks like Korea and the United States may at least informally discuss the possible deployment of a U.S. advanced missile defense system on Korean soil at their high-level defense talks coming up this April. And looking at the sub-headline here, the Daily says that it will no longer be easy to maintain a stance of strategic ambiguity on the issue for Korea, although the Seoul government will probably not go ahead with completely scrapping this strategy until Washington makes a formal request for consultations on the matter. Meanwhile, a Korean military official also mentioned that the issue is not included in the formal agenda of April's meeting. And finally, today we'll wrap with a look at the Korea Economic Daily for an article here in the middle. This one is about term deposits, and it's called Degradation of Term Deposits. Looking at the sub-headline, there's been an unusual phenomenon here where interest rates on money market deposit accounts have become lower than those on term deposit accounts. If we go ahead and look at this here, this is due to local banks competing to lower their term deposit interest rates, while they have not been adjusting the money market deposit rates. As you can see in this graph, the average interest rates for time deposits have been going down since 2012. And with that, banks say their term deposit accounts have been facing a situation of crisis, especially since the BOK cut Korea's key interest rate to a record low just 1 week ago. Now, that was a look at our local headlines this Thursday, and following are the stock numbers from Wednesday.
A bout of spring rain covered the peninsula yesterday, and temperatures have risen quite a bit this morning, I think.
That's right. And does this mean we're going to see clearer skies today?
That's what we're hoping for.
We'll find out more on today's weather conditions with our Chun Sung-cho, who joins us from outdoors. Good morning to you, Sung-cho.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. It was quite a lot of rain for the southern regions yesterday, considering that spring has just begun. Some places even saw over 200 millimeters of downpour, and we'll keep on receiving a little bit more this morning, about 5 millimeters of drizzles. But for central regions, yesterday, the total amount of precipitation was just less than 5 millimeters with no additional rain in the forecast. This is nowhere close to how much the regions need to ease the drought conditions, especially toward Ganghwa-do province. So meteorologists predict the problems concerning frequent wildfires and water shortages will persist this season. But looking on the bright side, all the gloominess that rain brought us will be replaced by warm spring weather conditions all across the country from today onwards. A high-pressure system over central China will come closer our way and be the main driving force for our weather system for the next couple of days. And this also means that the temperature gap between the highs and lows will grow bigger, and you can become more susceptible to catching a cold. And with that, let's take a closer look at today's temperature readings around the nation. Seoul is currently a little bit chilly at 6.8 degrees Celsius, but midday highs will almost reach the 20-degree mark, while Gangneung will just peak at 12. Due to the rain yesterday, it can be a misty and murky start to the day across the country with some fog patches in places, so pay close attention when you're driving this morning. This is all for me with the weather forecast. Back to Minjang in the studio.
Panic and horror in Tunisia's capital this morning after gunmen wearing military garb stormed an iconic museum and unleashed gunfire, killing at least 19 people. We'll head to the news center for the latest on this with our Eunice Kim, who's following the developments for us. Good morning.
Good morning.
I understand of the 19 people killed, most of them were foreign nationals.
That's right, Minjung. 17 were foreign visitors, according to the Tunisian Prime Minister, from Spain, Germany, Poland, and Italy. And authorities fear that that death toll could rise with time. The strike happened around noon local time at the National Bardo Museum, located inside a heavily guarded parliament compound in central Tunis. Government officials said militants took hostages for a time. They said security forces entered the museum some 2 hours later, gunning down 2 of the attackers. Local reports say at least 3 others are being pursued. At least 1 security guard was also among the dead. The militants have not been identified, nor has any group claimed responsibility for this assault. In a national address, Tunisia's Prime Minister urged unity, saying the strike had an aim of destroying the Tunisian economy, which heavily relies on tourism. Over in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has clinched his victory in Tuesday's election after his Likud party took the most number of seats in the Knesset, with nearly all the votes counted. After the results were confirmed, the 65-year-old leader made a trip to Jerusalem's Western Wall, a holy site in Judaism, in a traditional Thanksgiving visit. He said he was moved by the responsibility given to him by Israel and that he would form a new coalition government quickly, his party adding that could come within 2 or 3 weeks. Meanwhile, the surprise victory is also striking concern beyond the country, particularly as in the final hours of campaigning, Netanyahu had promised not to see a Palestinian state while he is in power. The U.S., together with the UN and the EU, have all urged Israel to seek a 2-state solution. U.S. President Barack Obama has yet to extend his congratulations amid his rift with the Israeli leader.
And as we discussed on our program just yesterday, the U.S. Federal Reserve has removed the word patient from its official policy statement, and this opens the door for a rate hike in June.
Right. This was a widely expected move, and U.S. markets ended on a high note at the end of the trading day Wednesday on confirmation that there would be no rate hike, at least in the month of April. But yes, if indeed that rate hike comes in June, it would be the first by the U.S. Central Bank in 9 years. Wrapping up a two-day meeting on Wednesday, the Fed said it will raise the interest rate when there is improvement in the job market, and it is reasonably confident inflation will move back to its 2% range. It also remained cautious, saying that any move would depend on incoming data, so we will have to keep watching for that. The Fed had kept its interest rates at a record low, near 0% since the global financial crisis back in 2008. Minjung.
We'll have to wait and see how it affects the Korean market when it opens in about 2 hours.
Right.
Thank you, Eunice.
Sure thing.
And still to come on Korea Today, we're going to check out an island with history and deep-rooted culture, an island that's home to a proud Korean handicraft, the hwamunseok sedge-mats. We'll take you on a great nature escape to the traditions of Ganghwa-do Island coming up later on Korea Today. Don't go away.
No matter where you're born, your identity plays a factor in what you produce, in the work you do, and in the art field as well. Today, we have an artist who is born in China, but is of Korean descent, and our Im Yoon-hee joins us with more on that. Good morning.
Good morning. Right. So Korean-Chinese artist Choi Hyun-gi, he's really been making his mark on the contemporary art front, especially here in Asia. Now, he's commonly also referred to by his Chinese name, Shui Shinji, but he's opened recently a very large solo exhibition here in Seoul at the Seonggok Art Museum, and I was able to take a look at some of his works. Have a look.
For most in this world, white is white and black is black. There may be different point of views, but the universal standards, the silent restraints linger quietly in the background, on the floor, all around us. But for some in this world, those standards are just mere suggestions. Artist Choi Hyun-gi is one of those individuals. Born and raised in China, but of Korean descent, Choi encountered a very successful career, first in China and then in Korea. He's a painter, but he's also a sculptor and an installation artist. His works embodying elements of both Asian and Western influence, but most strikingly, almost like a self-portrait, they reveal glimpses into his identity as an artist.
When I was young, I was in Baekdusan Mountain in North Korea, and everything I saw was white as snow. It was so pure. I wanted to return to that moment, so I started making these artworks, and interestingly, they started revealing my background. Through my art, I found my Korean identity.
Choi's heart beats to a different rhythm. He refuses the ideas written out by other figures in this world. Figures who capture the attention of millions of others. Instead, for this artist, it's important to maintain a pure and steady heart so that he can remove previous notions and customize his own world. Like the Mona Lisa, a figure believed to be the image of beauty in the mainstream world, but for Choi, it's a chance to challenge the idea and create something new. And while numbers were once believed to be non-negotiable, for Choi, they're yet another opportunity to find his own identity as an artist and as an individual.
I drew this character for 10 years, but there came a point when the letters started resembling sperm. I realized that instead of thinking and planning, I create and look back later. That's my process, and it also became my philosophy, to follow my primal instinct. Now it's something I apply to other things as well, to preserve that original purity. I made this with silicone, and then silicone became an object of interest, along with other aspects of my art, allowing me to find my creativity and go against the grain of tradition.
Distinct scribbles, stark color contrast, and a bit of the abstract. Choi has succeeded in creating his own identity. He's left his mark on this world, inspiring others to want to do the same, but of course, in their own unique way.
So he is leaving his mark in the world, and he lets you leave a mark on his art.
Right, and you know what? He said that's part of the art.
What was he thinking?
Well, he did trust me to leave my mark, but I was very gentle with it. But that piece is called Self-Portrait, and he actually takes that to the various exhibitions he holds around the world, and he has been doing this for the past 20 years. And he said it's interesting. He invites certain guests to leave their mark, and he likes to see where they do it and how they do it. And he looks at that, 20 years later. He said right now he's looking back at signatures he got from 20 years ago, and he said it really does kind of show him a part of his life, and he reflects on his life as well, people who have crossed paths with him. And he said he wants to continue doing that, so he wants to next 20 years and look back to now and maybe see my signature and remember.
That's amazing. Our very own Im Yoon-hee got a chance to immortalize her signature on his artwork, right? Now, when we talk about artists, we do talk about the materials that they use, right? He's not only a painter, but he also, as we saw on the report, that he's also an installation artist. And what kind of materials does he resort to?
Right, so you saw in the report, you heard silicone is something that he really does take advantage. But it's interesting, he actually told me that he actually got bored of just painting and he was losing interest in art, but then he found these modern materials like silicone, and he really sparked his interest again and his passion. And so if you go to the exhibition, you'll see that he makes use of all these different types of modern materials, including epoxy. And so it's a very interesting exhibition where you can see that he really does make use of the modern, but also goes back to his roots.
So a lot of the industrial materials are used.
Right, very creatively.
All right, well, thank you very much, and congratulations for getting your signature immortalized.
Well, thank you. I'll have to go find it in 20 years.
All right. All right, still ahead on Korea Today. Now, the weather has been getting warmer, which means that you could put away the bulky outerwear, but you still need some of the lighter stuff because that is in this season. And we're going to be looking at some of the outerwear that you need to keep in your closet and take it out every once in a while, right? Spring jackets and coats fill the racks at stores. Find out which are in style this season on K-Style. Great prints to oversized fits and new takes on the classic styles.
Dozens of relics and artifacts dating back more than 1,000 years have been discovered in the city of Gyeongju in Gyeongsang-buk-do province.
That's right. They were found at the ruins of Hwaseong Palace, the royal palace compound of the Silla dynasty. So this is a big deal.
Right.
So Min-seok joins us to tell us more about that. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, very big deal indeed. I mean, the Hwaseong in Gyeongju city has been the royal palace compound for a very long time. 50 successive monarchs and over 800 years, starting in 101 AD. Now, archaeologists, they have been excavating the area from December last year, and they didn't have to dig very far for this first set of artifacts. Within 30 centimeters from surface, they found various earthenware, roof tiles, and wall stones, as well as a large building lot, 28 meters by 7 meters in size. Now, details about the Hwaseong Palace being built in 101 AD is recorded in Samguk-sagi, or the history of the Three Kingdoms, but this is the first time that tangible evidence of it has been found.
And you told us that these relics were discovered in the top layer of the site, so do they have plans to dig deeper?
Right, so first 30 centimeters. Excavation so far has been limited somewhat. It was more of an excavation survey, but now that these relics have been found, they're going to seek approval for a full-fledged, thorough, deeper excavation from the Cultural Properties Committee this Friday.
Watch them find a tomb when they dig deeper.
Yeah, much more exciting and amazing things to look forward to. And also trending online is this letter of gratitude. Now, some of you may have been following the story. About a week ago, a child in Ganghwa-do Island got very sick. If we have a look at this map, Ganghwa-do Island is over here off the southwestern coast. If we zoom in, Ganghwa-do Island is very small, and the nearest hospital is about 140 kilometers away in Mokpo. So when this child got sick, his school teacher called for a police helicopter to take him to Mokpo. And unfortunately, it was very foggy that day, and while the helicopter was coming to Ganghwa-do, it crashed into the water with 4 people on board. 1 body has been found since then, and 3 are still missing. The boy was taken to Mokpo by a boat instead, and he is now healthy and well. But search and rescue efforts for the missing 3 are still ongoing. So the school teacher uploaded this letter of gratitude and condolence yesterday. Part of it reads, "First of all, I would like to offer my deepest condolences to the families of the victims. It was very foggy that day and people risked their own safety to save a young child. I am truly humbled by their noble sacrifice and passion. I will continue their spirit and strive to be a better teacher." And this letter has in turn touched and inspired many online. Switching gears now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is calling for higher quality cosmetics. So according to Joseon Shinbo, Kim Jong-un visited a cosmetic factory in Pyongyang earlier last month and pointed out problems with North Korean makeup. In particular, he said, eyeliners and mascaras from overseas stay put even when you go underwater, but with North Korean products, you get raccoon eyes just by yawning. He also called for higher quality products so that they can compete with global brands such as, quote, Lancome, Chanel, Shiseido, and Christian Dior.
Some of the best brands.
Right. We don't know a whole lot about Kim Jong-un, but we do know now that he knows a thing or two about makeup.
Yeah, better than Young or my dad, for example. I'm surprised that he knows, but this isn't the first time that Kim Jong-un has publicly criticized or pointed out flaws in North Korean products or projects. He's given similar criticism about North Korean fishing gear and also about the indiscriminate forest logging back in the 90s. And experts, analysts, they highlight that this public acknowledgement is something that you wouldn't have seen with his predecessors.
His grandfather and his father.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Sonang, for that.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, this year marks the 23rd anniversary of the diplomatic ties between Korea and Vietnam, and the establishment of the relations comes some 2 decades after the end of the Vietnam War, which Korea took part in as well.
Right. The two countries have now become cooperative partners in various sectors, but Korea has not forgotten the wounds that the war has left in the Southeast Asian country. And a civilian peace delegation from Korea recently made a visit to that country. Let's take a look.
Remnants of war still remain across the socialist Southeast Asian state of Vietnam. People from the countries that were involved in the Vietnam War, such as the United States, Korea, and Australia, visited Vietnam on a peace tour. This was a deeply meaningful peace tour, one that would take visitors to locations still wrought with brutal traces of war, and one that would remind visitors never to let such a battle take place. The tour of Vietnam goes through Ho Chi Minh City and provinces of Quang Ngai and Quang Nam. These are some of the areas which were damaged most by the Vietnam War. Cu Chi Town is where we can see some of the wartime traces left at Ho Chi Minh City, the most daunting, a network of tunnels. This immense network of tunnels was dug with hoes by villagers wanting to escape the horror when French troops invaded Vietnam in 1946. Tourists can actually go inside the tunnels to get a first-hand look at what life was like for the villagers. The entrance and ventilation holes are completely disguised so that the refugees could hide from their aggressors. The entrance is only 40 by 60 centimeters, just big enough for the smallest of frames. At first, it was built to briefly hide political agents and local villagers. But as the war dragged on, the tunnels became an impromptu subterranean dwelling. Babies were born there, schools were built, and a village community was formed.
Thinking about the circumstances that led them to live in those tunnels, I feel for them greatly, and I feel I understand them better after having been in the tunnels.
The long war brought tragedies to those who were involved. A countless number of people were killed or injured and lost their homes. The country became devastated and the cities were ravaged, and the regions still hold these vestiges of the war. The Cu Chi tunnels were restored for visitors to see how it was used and lived in by 15,000 people. The underground hospital and medical facilities were restored to show the important role they must have played during the war. Guides at the Kuchi tunnels are locals whose parents had experienced the wars or they had themselves. The guides say that these peace-seeking tourists make them feel like Korea and Vietnam are building a new friendship through the trips.
Korean visitors are very passionate about the tour in Kuchi tunnels and tend to be quite moved by them. I felt a lot of their empathy.
Korea, also a participant in the Vietnam War, has been making atonements for the part it played during the battle. This is a site where active cultural exchanges take place between Korean visitors and locals. It's Binhwa Primary School, the only school in Binhwa village of Ganghwa province. About 50 students out of the total 300 are children of war victims. A Korean NGO provides scholarships to these students every year.
It was heartbreaking to see 3 children studying at this very small desk. It reminded me of the old days when we lived in poverty and I was filled with sorrow.
The organization provides not only scholarships but also books and necessary school supplies. These small tokens of goodwill are small stepping stones toward closer ties between Korea and Vietnam.
I hope the children will remember this with a sense of pride and realize the scholarship was for their outstanding performance.
The next destination on the peace tour was the Pungni Monument in Gwangnam province. It's not a popular destination among tourists, but it's where a great deal of civilian exchanges are taking place between Korea and Vietnam. A memorial in honor of the war victims was erected here by youths of Korea and Vietnam together. All visitors here light incense to show respect for the fallen war victims and console their souls. The civilian peace delegation came to Vietnam to express their sorrow and regret on behalf of soldiers past. And such efforts are helping Vietnam to get over painful wounds in order to start building a new history of reconciliation and peace.
Có dịp rồi, trời mới gặp này thấy yêu quý quá, thương nhớ quá về hình ảnh quen thuộc cứ ốm ảnh trên đầu óc mà xa rồi trời mịt mờ sự hạn đâu.
Visiting the lasting remnants of a tumultuous history, reaching out and communicating. These are the important steps taken by Korea and Vietnam to heal their wounds and leap towards achieving better bilateral relations this year and the following years to come.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off in marathon. Now, there's been several non-Korean athletes who became naturalized Koreans, most of whom now play ice hockey. But how about marathon? Well, now Wilson Erupe, who won this year's Seoul International Marathon, has seen quite a bit of success here in Korea, including the course record he set during the 2012 Seoul International Marathon and his win in Gyeongju back in 2011. But now, after expressing his desire to be naturalized and represent Korea in the Olympics, he's going to find out if he can indeed be naturalized before leaving Korea on the 30th. And according to several marathon teams here in the nation, they're more than happy to have Erupe represent Korea as they hope to speed up the process in making it happen. Now, it's a known fact that when it comes to women's golf, it's the Koreans who dominate. But this season, it's a whole new level of domination. Now, first off, in the LPGA, there's been 6 LPGA Tour events where 5 Koreans won the titles, with the other being Lydia Ko, who's a Korean native. But it's not just in the LPGA, as the Ladies European Tour was all won by either a Korean or Korean natives as well. And with the JTBC Founders Cup teeing off this week, the big question is, who's next? As the 2 super rookies in Kim Hyo-ju and Chang Han-ah still seek their first victory, while Lydia Ko looks to extend their lead in the world rankings, with Park In-bi not competing in the event. That's been exciting in the KBL playoffs so far, and it's gotten even more exciting on Wednesday as the best-of-5 round-of-4 series tipped off with a repeat of last year's championship series between the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus and the Changwon LG Sakers. Of course, going into the highlights there, the well-rested Mobis team getting a great jump start to the game as they outscore LG 29-18 in the first quarter before going into halftime with a comfortable 45-33 lead thanks to Yang Dong-gun's 18 points just in the first half alone. And despite LG trying to change up their game plan in the second half, Mobis never looks back with Ricardo Ratliff putting up an insane 24 points, 19 rebounds, and 6 blocks as Mobis takes game 1 86-71. Now wearing a green LA Dodgers hat for St. Patrick's Day, Lee Hyun-jin went into his second spring start against the Texas Rangers. Only he didn't get to face Choo Shin-soo since he was given the day off. Well, there's always next time, right? Well, either way, Lee Hyun-jin not as sharp as he was in his first start against the Padres as he pitches 3 innings while striking out 2 Rangers, but does give up 3 runs, one of which was unearned. Still early in the spring, though, as the hefty lefty will probably get a good 5 innings in his next spring start. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
People in the capital might be wondering about some places to visit this spring, somewhere not that far away at the same time, somewhere with a bit of the ocean. And look no further, the 5th largest island in Korea.
Right, it's just 1 hour and 30 minutes drive away, and our Joey Mercadante visited the place this week, and he joins us now in the studio. Good morning, Joey.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we're talking about Ganghwa-do, and only an hour and a half away. It's referred to as a museum without walls, and that's because of all the historical and cultural artifacts that are well preserved there. Not to mention the traditions and the delicious food. I've got a lot of things to show you, and I'd like to take you there right now. Ganghwa-gun is a division of Incheon Metropolitan City, made up of a number of small islands and Ganghwa-do. Ganghwa-do is the 5th largest island of Korea, home to many ancient artifacts, beautiful natural environments, and regional specialty products that bring in countless visitors every year. Hello from Ganghwa-do. Spring is definitely in the air here, and I've heard that Ganghwa-do has some great things for me to see and do. My visit started at the biggest marketplace on the island, Ganghwa Traditional Flea Market, where they have fresh seafood from the West Sea and other products the island was famous for. 이거 다 뭐예요?
This is a salted seafood side dish called jeokgal. What's famous in Ganghwa is the herring pendengi-jeot and 새우-jeot.
Jeokgal, salted and fermented seafood, is a tasty Ganghwa-do specialty. Perfect side dishes to complement most Korean meals are available here, and they're fresh and very delicious. I see why this place is popular. Another regional product that the island was very proud of, they're Ganghwa-do turnips. These turnips combined with the jeokgal made the perfect kimchi.
Ganghwa-do turnip crops get a lot of briny sea winds, which is why they taste the best here. They're simply delicious.
Off to one side of the market was a large section saved for Ganghwa mats.
When you lay it down in the summer, the sedge-mats don't get sticky. In fact, they keep you dry and cool. And they're 100% handcrafted here, a specialty product of this region.
To learn more about this regional specialty, I visited a cultural center.
I have a couple of those at home. They leave a bit of a mark on your skin, though.
Well, I have one of yours in the trunk of my car.
Right.
So these are hwamunseok crafts. They date back to the Goryeo dynasty, and even back then it was exported to China and Japan. This is an 800-year-old culture legacy of Ganghwa-do.
They serve as mats if you go on a picnic.
Weaving even
They
a
roll up
mini
nicely, too.
hwamunseok takes over an hour, but a normal size hwamunseok takes over 150 line stitches, so it takes about 150 times longer than the small ones.
Weaving is difficult enough. I can only imagine how hard it was when you add the patterns.
I think it's very nice making the experience, making the things by yourself.
That is
It
a
was
lot of
still
work.
not easy because it requires patience, skill, a good eye, but you still have to really focus to do a good job. Now, to get a real taste of spring on Ganghwa-do Island, I was directed to a quaint house in the countryside. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. This country house is owned by a husband-wife team that spent 20 years cultivating their beautiful garden and home into a place where visitors could experience Ganghwa-do's food culture. Their flower teas were exceptional.
Some spring flowers are the ginger flowers and the magnolia flowers.
These flower teas were so good because they went through a 9-step roasting, drying process.
They look like fresh
The magnolia flower tea is very good for allergic rhinitis, sinus infections, and a stuffy nose.
I was pleasantly surprised by the taste.
A very subtle floral fragrance, but it's not over the top, it's not perfumey like department store perfume, but it feels and tastes very natural and reminds me of the spring. The color is just beautiful.
Now, the tea was just the beginning. Now, for the flower crafts, we used pressed flowers, leaves, and tree barks to make our own artistic wares.
Flowers have fronts and backs, so check them carefully.
Pressed flowers can be used to ornament any variety of everyday household products or to spruce up the interior of your home. It's something that anyone can learn to do as long as you have the patience and focus.
These flowers originally are very beautiful all on their own, but I've been able to capture that and make it into something even more beautiful. What do you think?
A long time ago, when the Korean azaleas bloomed in spring, women would go on outings for flower watching and to pick fresh flowers to make hwajeon. Hwajeon is a flour pancake, but more like a rice cake or tteok. It's made with glutinous rice, made into small round patties, and then pan-fried. And while they're in the pan, edible flowers such as azaleas or chrysanthemums are added on top of the rice cake. You eat the hwajeon, dipped in a bit of honey, and I can tell you truthfully, it is delicious. What was interesting for me was that even the tiny bit of flour on top gave off a deep flavor. Everyone really seemed to enjoy them.
It has a very neat, delicious taste with a spring-like aroma. I'm really enjoying all these things made with flowers.
This week is another perfect example of how spring has truly arrived. Come to Ganghwa-do and experience some of the things that I have today, and you will have a lot of springtime fun just like me.
And you brought some of the things that you made with the pressed flowers. They almost look like drawings or paintings.
Yeah, I thought they were painted.
I know. And apart from the flower tea and other activities that you did there, I heard that there were some more active activities.
That's true. If all this fun flowery stuff is not your thing, you could get down and dirty with a farming experience. So they have farm parties where you get the farming experience, you collect your crops, you pick them, and then you get to enjoy them later during the evening at the dinner party. They also have lotus cuisine. So the lotus leaf is wraps up the rice, and also in Korean it's known as yeonipbap, a specialty food in Ganghwa-do. And
You get to enjoy that with a lot of traditional Korean dishes while listening to a live music recital. So if you're interested in that, please check out the website for more information because the schedule is subject to slight changes.
But if flowers and flower tea are your cup of tea, there is a flower festival that's coming up shortly.
That's right. When I was there, it just happened to not be that time, but it's coming up very soon. It's the Korean Azalea Flower Festival at Koryosan Mountain. And a lot of the programs will be similar to what I experienced, the tea tasting and the chun making and so on. So yeah, I would recommend that.
Okay, if flower festivals and some of the stuff that you actually showed isn't really your cup of tea again, I understand that they do have some trekking activities there because Ganghwa-do is a very beautiful area and the slow walk through the area could actually give you more insight into the beauty of it all.
It's gorgeous. And yes, there are great trekking courses. They have 19 trekking courses that they call the Ganghwa-do Island trails. And they track through tourist attractions like the Ganghwa traditional flea markets or the hwamunseok sedge-mat culture hall. Now, they also do something called a trekking passport. So you get stamps at various checkpoints, you get all the stamps and you get a souvenir. So if that interests you, you can pick up a trekking passport on the course near Ganghwa-do bus terminal or Ganghwa Bridge. That's on the 2nd and 4th Saturday. And there's guides that accompany you and give you great information about what you're looking at. So,
all right. Well, you know, Joey, I've been actually eyeing that paper towel holder there.
You can have this one.
I was thinking actually you could make a great bookmarker, one of those
with the pressed
bookmark.
flowers.
Yeah, with those flowers.
Yeah, there's so many great ideas that you can.
I'm hanging your necklace, Joey.
Yeah, this one is actually made. This is just a quick note. This is made from the sedge that I mentioned earlier. So not only mats, but you can have accessories as well.
All right.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
It's obvious that spring is finally here just by checking out what people are wearing on the streets. Everyone shed their heavy winter coats for lighter spring gear. Now let's find out what's in style. We're taking our cue from the celebrities and venturing out to the hot shops in Seoul. And our first stop, Garosukil in Gangnam. Here we are at a multi-brand shop that has all the hip styles thanks to its collection from young, rising fashion designers. It's growing into a major retailer and has an extremely wide variety to choose from. They have blouse jackets or blousons, the easy-going rider-style jackets, cool bombers, and of course, trench coats. The exact inventory of what's hot in spring 2015.
I'm leaning towards brighter colors since it's spring, and because of daily temperature difference, I'd like something light but made with sturdy material.
That's right, all the usual suspects. One more time down the list. Bomber jackets, the trench coat, and rider jackets, but with a bit of variation to them. This year, things get a bit more comfortable and loose in size, with simplified lines and cuts. We're talking about coats and jackets that focus on keeping things casual but have a design accent or two.
The outerwear you have on really makes a difference in your overall fashion style, so I'm very picky about what to choose.
Let's take a look at the trench coat. It's a must-have, but your mother's basic trench has no place in your closet. Either the cut is made for even more simple, or it goes the other direction, wild prints or funky fabrics. In this day and age, you gotta adapt to survive, and it's no different when it comes to fashion. That's why we're seeing a lot of variations from the classic styles, even if it's just the usual double column of buttons scaled down, or a simple fabric switch.
Normcore has been a trend since last year, so designs are now more casual, but without a doubt, the trench coat is still a must-have item around the spring and fall seasons.
Now that we've got the general idea on what to look for in jackets and coats this spring season, we'll break it down for you with products in the studio.
A jacket or a trench coat can really make or break your look this spring, and we'll find out more with our Punita Bajaj, who joins us in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And of course, we are talking about a major trend setting in this season. It's the spring outerwear. Now, of course, as we said in the video, and also a couple of weeks ago, normcore is in, which means more of a loose and comfortable fit rather than the skinny and tight. But there are a lot of variations when it comes to spring coats and jackets, whether it's the design, the style, the fabric, whatever. The possibilities are endless. So we'll just dive into our first item. It's the trench coat, but for example, this is linen. It's not 100% linen, which means that it is less maintenance. So I think if it was 100%, you'd have to carry a steam iron around because it crinkles
easily.
Quite easily.
Right?
Yeah, so this is great. I think fashion icons all around the world have at least 1 or 2, maybe even 4 trench coats, maybe for each season. Now, since the weather is warming up, they have created a linen one. Going back to the design, there are quite a number of differences. For this one, this is a double-breasted look, but for this one, arguably, people can say that it is a cardigan since it is so lightweight. But for the main difference is, I think, this box look and, of course, the shoulder patches.
Do you think you can try one on, maybe?
Sure, of course. Which one would you like?
Go with the linen one.
All right.
Because it is getting a little warmer in the afternoon.
Sure, of course. Today is going to go up to 19 degrees Celsius.
There you go. Am I pulling it off?
Yeah. It looks really great, and you could.
It's very light too.
Sure, right. And you could pair it with any type of dress, pants, and you could go with any shade of gray.
If you want a little more formal look, I suppose you could button it up. Or if you want to go a little casual, you can
what's great is that
undo the buttons.
It keeps some of the classic elements, but it does take out the strap that they used to have usually.
Right. So this one doesn't have any buttons. It did have a, okay, here it is. It did have a overcoat belt here. So if you do want to close it, you can with this belt, or it comes with double-breasted buttons as well. And of course, one of the differences is length. As you said, that people do formal and casual, and it could depend on length as well. If you want a formal look, you go for a longer fit or a shorter fit for a casual. And as you can see, our rack is up and down, so they're short and long all over. For example, this is more of a longer side, but it has no
like
sleeves.
A vest almost.
Sure. So since the weather is warming up, you could pass this on to summer as well. It could be used as a layering piece, but it's great because this actually is a zipper. No buttons, just zip down. It hides a zipper inside, so it's a great hidden look. There are so many differences, and I think we're talking a lot about women, and Young is kind of feeling lonely, so we're going to jump onto our bomber jackets.
Why am I here? I'm about to walk off the set.
Bomber jackets for men. Of course, Top Gun is quite famous for it. Tom Cruise wore the bomber jackets.
The bomber jackets, they're usually called aviators, and they're usually made of leather, a little bit thicker, and roots from the pilots that used to fly in like World War II, World War I.
I think Young can actually pull this off.
He can. I really think this blue one would look really good. And the thing is that it will look good with a suit, so you can make it formal or casual. And as you said, they were made for pilots, so it's cinched on the wrist and the waist as well. A lot of people can get confused with the varsity jacket or the bomber jacket, but it looks great, I think.
Do I look like I'm pulling it off?
Definitely. It looks very casual. You look definitely younger all of a sudden, instantly.
I feel like a security guard.
No, you don't say that. No, you look definitely younger and more like you're about to go out and play some balls. I don't know.
You know what it is? It's definitely what you wear on the inside. Because if you're wearing just a regular dress shirt and a tie and dress pants and dress shoes, this definitely is going to give you a whole different look. But if you're wearing more casual gear, for example, maybe a pair of chinos or something,
Okay.
then I think that would probably look a lot better. Without the tie, of course.
Right, so there, you can variate it quite differently. And the one example I wanted to show is this is also categorized as a bomber jacket. It's quite
that's
feminine.
a bomber.
Yes, it is. It's not a Tom Cruise jacket, but of course it is a bomber. It's just lace.
through a bomber jacket as well.
So it's quite feminine. You could pair it with pants, but I decided to go for a feminine look with a lacy skirt as well. And there's so many differences. There's so many diverse variations. There is, of course, this. Maybe
That's a bomber too.
This is more towards the cardigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but you could also pair it with a pair of jeans. I
Sure.
think that could give off that unbalanced type of look, where it's a little more sophisticated on the top, but a lot more casual on the bottom, and you look active and ready to hit the road.
Sure.
Well, real quickly, if you want to top that off, you can use some of these scarves that are over there, right?
Yes, of course.
Show
You
us
have
some
to
scarves.
accessorize.
Right, I'm just gonna take the liberty of trying one on, just
Can I
like
try
that.
one on too?
Sure. Right, when it gets a little chilly at night or in the morning on your way to work, all you have to do is just put that on, then you're good to go.
Right, because spring is also great weather, but the temperature differences are pretty big. Now, it can go from really sunny and warm afternoons, and then in the morning or at night when you go back home from work, it just drops all of a sudden. So, of course, you do want to keep yourself warm and healthy with a fashionable scarf.
All right, so perfect for this type of weather with one of these, but I don't think I'm pulling it up, so I'll just give this to you, Panita.
Come on, do some shopping.
I was actually thinking of buying an oversized bomber jacket because I usually enjoy wearing casual when we're not doing the show. So probably I'll take that.
You
could shop in the men's section as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Panita.
Thank you.
All right, well, this is where we say goodbye on this Thursday morning.
All right, stay warm out there or stay cool out there because the temperature differences are a little bit great.
Carry
So
a
have one of those
scarf.
out, right? We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.